So, Shabbat Shalom. We're so glad to see those of you who are here in our sanctuary. We're so grateful to those of you who are joining us online. And we're in this kind of funny time after the holiday, before the holidays, and how meaningful it is to be here together. And so we'll begin, I think, with a nigun.
Indeed, and you're gonna. Can you hear me now? There we go. You're gonna get to hear this melody in a little bit. So this is actually kind of our trial run for it, and you may have heard it before, but Jacob and I are gonna sing it a couple times with Andy's help, and we're just gonna sing it on Yai Lai Lai, so that way we can just get accustomed to that melody. Yai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai Dai.
Yai dai dai dai.
Yai Dai Dai Dai. Dai Dai Dai. Yai Dai Dai Dai.
Yai dai dai dai.
Yai Dai Dai Dai.
Yai dai dai dai.
Yai Dai 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 Dai. How's that feel? Yeah? Good. Nice to start Shabbat all together.
And so we're so grateful to all of you for being open to just letting your hearts and souls be open to the melodies and the words and the prayers of what it means to receive Shabbat. And so, Brachim Habayim, blessings, and welcome to those of you who are joining us online, to those of you who are here in our sanctuary this evening. I'm Rabbi Ruth Zlotnick, and I'm joined by Rabbi Dana Benson. We're so grateful to Jacob and Andy, who are doing so much to help lift up our prayers and music. Jamie Schur, thank you for being the wind beneath our technological wings. And Kim and Louie, thank you for being the warm welcome. All right, so I think you know all of the folks who are here to help create whatever kind of Shabbat experience you're having, whether you're online or here, but except for one really key piece, which is who are you with? And so we'll invite you to say Shabbat Shalom and offer your name if you don't know each other, to those of you in the sanctuary, and to those of you online. If you're with someone wonderful, reconnect with them. If you're not, just know that we are feeling your presence as we take a few moments to wish one another Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Didn't play with you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. About 6 weeks ago. Yeah, so fresh. And it's felt super good being here so far. I've been really enjoying it a lot. Does it show?
So Shabbat cannot officially begin. We've welcomed each other. We've joined together in space and in breathing and in melody. And now it's time to enter Shabbat through lighting our candles. And it's my honor and pleasure to invite up two very special individuals, Akiva Gray and Aviv, who, amongst being teachers here, also had the wonderful Simchat Mazel Tov. They got married last night. So their first official Shabbat as a couple, they'll be helping us to bring it in. And so if you two wouldn't mind lighting the candles, as you've been a light to our community, and hopefully you'll continue to be lights unto each other.
And of course, we gave them the trick matches because
Communication's important in relationships, so you gotta like.
exactly.
Just kidding.
And we'll bring that light into ourselves. Into ourselves and not onto ourselves.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
One of you read this paragraph and one of you read that one.
Sure.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and into our lives.
Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, and all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
And on Shabbat, it's customary oftentimes to offer the blessing. No, you two are staying up here for a second.
No, you guys are actually going to
We
stick
need you.
around for a
So
moment.
yeah, you're going to stick here for a moment. Oftentimes there's the custom of offering the priestly benediction over children on Shabbat, but in this special moment, as this
And
is,
if
yeah.
you're able, we invite you to please rise.
Yes, as we have our open ark before us. You two come on in.
And
And
we're gonna just do a little dancing here.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Love it. And so we offer you this trifold blessing that has been handed down generation to generation unto you, and may you carry it forward through love and life and all that you do. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
Aviv and Akiva, as you go forth on the journey of your marriage, may God bless you and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha.
And may the light of the divine that shines forth from the love that you share with one another, may that light shine upon you and always be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'yasem lecha shalom.
And as two individuals, you are joined together as a married couple. As you go forth on this path together, may God be with you and always grant you peace.
Amen.
And let us say amen.
Simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov,
Wonderful. Please be seated if you're standing.
Indeed. And so we're going to move now from that beautiful simcha of light, which I think is only appropriate, that we're going to continue singing about light on page 14, that paragraph that's kind of separated out at the bottom. It's time for some Orza Rua. Join with us. Orza Rua, la tzadik, ol yishrei lev simcha. Orza Rua, la tzadik, ol yishrei lev simcha. Orza Rua, la tzadik, ol yishrei lev simcha. Ol yishrei lev simcha. Orza Rua, la tzadik, ol yishrei lev simcha. Ol yishrei lev simcha. Or Zaruach, yeah, Zat Sadiq, Or Yisrael Lev Simcha. Or Zaruach, Zat Sadiq, Or Yisrael Lev Simcha. Let me hear ya. Or Zaruach, Zat Sadiq, Or Yisrael Lev Simcha. Or Yisrael Lev Simcha. Or Zaruach Tzaddik, Or Yisrael Lev Simcha. Or Yisrael Lev Simcha. Join us in some yai. Yai, 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 yai,
We take this light that Akiva and Aviv brought to us, and we sing about Or Zarua L'Tzaddik, that light can allow us to embody our most just, most loving selves. And then we are ready, really, to bring in Shabbat, to welcome in Shabbat as we welcome in spouses who have just came out from under the wedding canopy. We embrace Shabbat with joy, no matter what our challenges may have been this week. That is what we sing about when we sing Lecha Dodi. Let's bring in that sense of joyfulness, that sense of spaciousness. We sing Lecha Dodi. We do verses 1 to 5, and in the 9th and final verse, if you choose to, we invite you to rise and turn towards the door. See if you can't feel the presence of Shabbat at that last verse. We'll get there.
But for now, you can feel Shabbat with a little groove. L'chadodi, likrat kala, tene Shabbat, nekavela. L'chadodi, likrat kala, tene Shabbat, nekavela. Shamor v'zachor, b'dibur echad, yishmi'anu Yuchad, Adonai Echad, Ushmo Echad, B'Shem Tiferet, V'Litzchila, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekavela, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Nekavela. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha, ki mikor haveracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshava tchila, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekavela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekavela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki ba'orech kumi ori, 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 shir daberi, kevod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekavela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, nekavela.
Eyes and body or spirit.
Boi beshalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha uvetzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat. Shabbat nekavela.
Please be seated. We're in this intermediate moment when we've received Shabbat, but we're not quite ready yet to jump into the evening prayers. It's a moment when usually we, in a traditional service, we might do the Chetzi Kaddish as a bridge that helps us make that emotional shift deeper into nighttime. But I share with you a poem which I know some of you have heard me recite before, but it's a poem that I just love about not only experiencing that great joy that Shabbat brings to us, but also that calm and that peace and that rest that the evening of Shabbat can offer us. It's called Let Evening Come by Jane Kenyon. Let the light of late afternoon shine through chinks in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let the stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. To the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to air in the lung, let evening come. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let evening come. We're ready for our evening prayers, and we begin with the Baruch Hu. It's on page 28.
And this is the melody we were just practicing at the start of the service, so we invite you to rise and follow along with us with the words now. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach
Hamevorach
Baruch Adonai hamevorach
Hamevorach
leolam
Leolam
va'ed hamevorach
Hamevorach
leolam
Leolam
And some of you may have noticed that we have some words now on the screen. So you may take a seat, you may be seated, as we move directly from the Baruch Hu into a prayer for evening, as Rabbi Ruth's poem and as she spoke about so beautifully. And so we're going to move into these words. It's so much darker now than it was, but we can still feel that sense of understanding that change of night to day in our own selves, in coming into Shabbat and experiencing Shabbat, and just being present with one another on this Shabbat evening. So join with us in English. Yai, dai, dai, dai. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Reyom v'layla, golel or mivnei choshech, golel or mivnei choshech, vechoshech mivnei or. Pick one of those two lines. Reyom v'layla, golel mivnei choshech, golel or mivnei choshech, vechoshech mivnei or. more time. Let's do that.
Oh,
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night.
Lovely. Thank you. What I love about this interpretation of the evening prayer about bringing on evening is it speaks about the fact that our lives are part of an undifferentiated whole. We think it's nighttime now, but we know that daytime is in potential. And the same holds true in the morning. We know the night is there. The same is true for every part of life, I think Judaism teaches. And I think part of the challenge of embracing Torah is not just embracing the wonderful lessons that are easy to swallow, but also the lessons that make us struggle, that challenge us. And so our two prayers for evening are thanking God for the creation of light and darkness and thanking God for the creation of Torah. And I'm going to be speaking in just a little bit about a text that I've had trouble with. And so I invite you to join me on a variation on that second prayer, too, at the top of page 33. I really enjoy this particular variation on our prayer, Ahavat Olam, our prayer of thanking God for giving us the gift of Torah, because it recognizes that sometimes Torah is a challenging gift to receive. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, please join me. Teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. And so we turn now to the Shema which speaks about that mystery, that oneness of which we're all a part. Our rabbis teach that this is a prayer that we say in whatever position we find, but some of us feel that this is an important prayer to rise up for, to feel the oneness in our hearts. I invite you to stay seated or to stand up, as is your desire.
Page 34. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Leolam Va'ed Leolam Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please be seated and please join us. Rabbi Dana leads us in the Ve'ahavta, page 36.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, ששבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
And so we continue now on page 40 and 41. And this is our prayer, Mi Chamocha. It's actually, some of you have heard me share with you that this is a prayer. It's called Ge'ulah. It means redemption. And you have to begin with the prayer about bringing on evening, and then you have to talk about Torah in some way. Then you do this assertion of God's oneness with this sense of love that we bring into the world. And that whole set of prayers is not over until we say, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you, O God, which were the words that our ancestors said when they were being chased by Egyptians, when they were not sure they would make it to the shores of freedom. They made it to the other side, and they felt a sense of relief and liberation and a recognition that they then would be able to, and this is key, we sometimes forget this part, in their freedom, serve God and other human beings. And so this is kind of a big moment in our service, and I think I've taught before that the rabbis teach that if you forget to say the Ge'ulah, if you forget to say Mi Chamocha, then you have to go back to the very beginning, at the very, like the Nigun, and we have to go all the way back. We don't want to do that. So what I'd like to suggest is maybe we could take a moment. Maybe you want to get a little more comfortable. Maybe you want to close your eyes. Maybe you want to take some deep breaths in and out. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's not your thing. That's okay too. But I'd like you to reflect on your week. And I'd like you to think about, was there a moment in this week when something awakened in you, when you felt connected to something bigger than yourself, or when you felt release or freedom from something, or when you felt the pure celebration of connection with someone else? I'm wondering, as you breathe in and out, if you can feel that sense of liberation. And I'm wondering if anyone would be willing to share a moment that they can celebrate, of freedom, of celebration, of release, that they experienced this week. Yes, Allison.
On November 30th, we finished National Novel Writing Month, so there was a whole bunch
Oh, yes. What's it? Okay, so I just want to make sure so everyone at home can hear. The end of November was National Novel Writing Month. You may not know about it, but if you didn't see some friends, it may be because they were writing a novel in the month of November.
and we all finished, and now we've written books, and we're done.
That is such an awesome, so there is a freedom in having completed this amazing goal of telling a story, which is perhaps, at least in the Jewish imagination, the most sacred task you can do. Beautiful, Allison. Maybe one or two more moments of freedom, perhaps joy and connection would work too.
Okay. Finally being
So Akiva and Aviv were married last evening, having the planning behind us and the marriage ahead of us, is what I'm hearing you say.
And that big moment of connection, I think, for me personally, vows.
Oh, wonderful. And that moment under the chuppah when you exchanged promises to one another and deepened your sense of covenant commitment to each other. Beautiful. Yes. I didn't
Hazel
hear.
lost a tooth. Is
You
that
lo-
right? Is
A
that what I heard?
tooth was liberated from a mouth.
Tooth was liberated from your mouth,
That
Hazel.
is so awesome.
Indeed.
And that is such a sign, actually, like you made it through. That's a journey too. So I'd like to suggest, as we see on page 40, that all of these moments allow us to really say, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you, the one who has created us all and allowed us to walk hand in hand with one another through this moment of celebration, of release, and of freedom. Amen.
Amen ve'amen. And with that sense of freedom and release and connection, we ask for a sense of protection of all of those things, that sense of being able to know that we can hold on to it. And even amidst the darkest moments, even amidst the icy snow, we have something, hopefully. Some people are like, icy snow. It's not very much snow for those of us who are not from Seattle or from the Midwest. But whatever it is, as we move into evening, we all seek that sense of comfort, of protection, of knowing that our lives are filled with purpose, that our days are filled with meaning, and that our world is filled with love. And so as we turn to the Hashkivenu, we think about not only all of those things, but the hope for protection of those things as well. Join with us. The Hashkivenu can be found on page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeiteinu uvoenu lechaim ulshalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Oliver has written that it doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be weeds in a vacant lot or a few small stones. Just pay attention. Then patch a few words together and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but the doorway into thanks and the silence in which another voice may speak. We rise for the tefillah, our standing prayer. We rise in body or spirit. It's on page 46.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up our lips that our mouths may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol ve'Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם מכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We'll continue with the rest of the Amidah in silence, either with the words on the page through page 62 or with the words engraved in our own hearts. And when your personal prayer is done, feel free to be seated.
רצון, אמרי פי, והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי, אדוני וגואלי Adonai Tzurim, Adonai Tzurim,
Adonai Tzurim,
V'goali,
V'goali, V'goali.
And so we say, Adonai Tzuri, God is our rock. God is the foundation upon which we stand. But we know for some of us, the foundation that we stand upon feels a little shaky because we or someone we love is in pain and in need of healing. We always make sure to take a moment to think about those among us who we love and who we want to extend our prayers for healing. So I'll invite you at home, please say out loud the name of the person you're thinking about. Martin Buber says, when you say the name aloud, you feel the presence of the individual. And we'll do the same here in the sanctuary. I'll invite you, if you have a name, to add it, as we also think, of course, about those impacted by COVID and by gun violence and by wars of all kinds and those who've been wounded at the hands of injustice. So, any names for the healing?
Shoshana Glickman.
Everyone we've named out loud and anyone we may hold in our hearts. We continue now with our Mishaberach L'Cholim, our prayer for healing, on page 253.
Shabbat Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Hu Yevarech V'Yerafeh Et HaCholim Yishabeirach Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Hu Yevarech V'Yirapeh Et HaCholim Avraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Hu Yevarech V'Yirapeh Et HaCholim Hu Yevarech V'Yirapeh Et HaCholim.
May each and every one know a full and speedy recovery of body and of soul. And I've been wrestling all day with how do I begin this teaching that I want to share. And for those of you who were, awake at the beginning of services, you may remember that I said there's a piece of Torah that I've been really struggling with. And I'm thinking just singing that Mishaberach, where here we are in 5783 on the verge of the Gregorian year 2023, and our services are being led by a rabbi who identifies as a woman, a rabbi who identifies as non-binary. We're including in our blessings our matriarchs along with our patriarchs. You would think that at this point, in this particular congregation, at this particular moment, we're doing all right. And then we get a Torah portion like this week's Torah portion. And we realize, I realize, at least for me, how much unlearning we still have to do, how much naming we still have to do, and how much healing we still have to do. Because, and I'm really blessed, and I'm really excited to share with you all something that I will be experiencing next Shabbat. But this Torah portion is so rich, and I have to say there is one minor character in it, though, who I was kind of fascinated about in college, but in the 3 decades plus since, I've kind of ignored this minor character. I've kind of not really engaged this person. And the person I'm speaking about is Dinah. This week's Torah portion, Vayetze, is so rich and so wonderful. Vayetze means that Jacob went out. He was escaping from his brother Esau, and he sees a ladder to heaven. Like, it's great. It's a great Torah portion. There's a lot of really wonderful stuff I've studied over the last 35 years in avoiding Dinah, because what happens is Jacob makes it over to see his family. You may know the story. He meets Rachel, falls in love. He gets married to Leah first. He ends up also having a couple of kids with some handmaidens. There's a lot of kids. In fact, there are 12 sons. And then this week we're introduced to the minor character of Dinah. And next week, and this is the real key for why Dinah is such a beautiful name. It's a name that sounds the idea of bringing judgment, of bringing clarity into this world, of bringing a sense of unity into this world. And next week, in the same way that Jacob goes out at the beginning of this week's Torah portion, next week we read how Dinah goes out to meet the daughters of the land. And that's the last we hear of her agency. What we learn of next is that there is some kind of violation to her, and it doesn't really matter what her experience was, because the people who were damaged were the men in her life, for whatever it might have been. So here I am. I have been a rabbi for many, many years. We live in an egalitarian congregation, but we have so much unlearning to do. We have so much naming to do, and we have so much healing to do. And so the reason why I have finally found the courage to no longer ignore Dinah's story, this story of a woman who has been damaged, a woman who is considered chattel, the reason why and a woman who's silent. So maybe there's something fabulous going on there. I will say I have some guilt about Dinah as well. When I was a rabbinic student was when The Red Tent came out, the book that is all about Dinah's perspective and Dinah's experience, and my mother wanted me to read it so much. And at the time, I was like, Mom, I'm a rabbinic student. I'm about to be a rabbi. I can't read that, you know. And now I realize all these years later how much my mother, who was raised as a 1950s housewife, how much she was trying to reach out to me, this young woman who was living a life she would never have even dreamed of when she was being raised. The reason why I've been living with Dinah for this last week or so, and I'm anticipating living with her next week, is I have a unique opportunity in the history of Judaism, I kind of feel like, because this year is the 50th anniversary of women in the rabbinate. In 1972, Sally Presand was the first. In recent memory, there's another story of another woman who was ordained during World War II. We'll talk about that another time. And in the 50 years since then, Judaism has changed quite a bit, which has allowed us to have the community that we have. But it doesn't mean that the stories that are at the heart of our tradition don't still need to be confronted in their reality. And so the reason why still wouldn't do it. This is yucky, it's hard, it's difficult to look at the treatment of women in certain Torah texts. But next week, one of my dearest friends is a rabbi, and she is being installed at Temple Emmanuel in New York City. If you don't know Temple Emmanuel, it is a Gothic cathedral of a congregation. And what my friend Sarah Reines, Rabbi Sarah Reines, she asked me to be the installing rabbi, which is such an honor. But even more than that, what she wants to do is celebrate 50 years of women in the rabbinate. And what she has done has been to extend her reach to 50 other of our colleagues, 50 women who have influenced her rabbinate. And we're going to celebrate the wisdom that we have learned each step of the way as we've come from 1972 to this year right now. As we were creating the ritual, my friend Sarah and I, who we can be a little, brutally honest with each other, I said to her, what a beautiful Torah portion. Next week is the Torah portion where Jacob crosses the river and wrestles with the angel and is blessed with a new name. That'll be a perfect Torah portion to use for your installation. And she looked at me over Zoom like I was crazy, and she said, I kind of think we should talk about Dina. I was like, oh, damn. And so that's why I've been living with Dina in my heart and in my soul. And I have to say, this is a young woman in this Torah text. She's identified as a young woman who goes out to speak to the other women of the land. There's clearly a story here that we have not yet unpacked. And clearly what my mother was trying to convey to me, Mom, finally, I'm reading the Red Tent in preparation. And what I'm realizing is how beautiful it is when we name and when we unlearn and when we heal. So I'd like to share with you a different notion of who Dina is by reading the first 2 paragraphs of the prologue to the Red Tent as my offering to all of you as we lift up Dina's life and we recognize that even as we've come so far in recognizing the fullness of each human soul, however they identify, there's still so much unlearning, so much naming, and so much healing we've yet to do. Anita Diamond wrote the novel The Red Tent, and this is her speaking from Dina's voice. We've been lost to each other for so long. My name means nothing to you, my memory is dust. This is not your fault or mine. The chain connecting mother to daughter was broken, and the word passed to the keeping of men who had no way of knowing. That is why I became a footnote. My story, a brief detour between the well-known history of my father Jacob and the celebrated chronicle of Joseph, my brother. On the rare occasions when I was remembered, it was as a victim. It's a wonder that any mother ever called a daughter Dina again, but some did. Maybe you guessed that there was more to me than the voiceless cipher in the text. Maybe you heard it in the music of my name, the first vowel high and clear, as when a mother calls to her child at dusk. The second sound soft for whispering secrets on the pillows. Dina. No one recalled my skill as a midwife or the songs I sang or the bread I baked for my insatiable brothers. Nothing remained except a few mangled details about those weeks in Shechem when I was violated. There was far more to tell. Had I been asked to speak of it, I would have begun with the story of the generation that raised me, which is the only place to begin. If you want to understand any woman, you must first ask about her mother and then listen carefully. Stories about food show a strong connection. wistful silences demonstrate unfinished business. The more a child knows the detail of their mother's life without flinching or whining, the stronger the child. On this Shabbat, when we celebrate Dina, our mother, and we celebrate the brave women who preceded us in the rabbinate, may we all be B'nai, Benot, B'nai, Dina, children of Dina, unlearning the past, naming the past, healing from the past, and going forth in the fullness of our souls. Amen. And then with that, we continue with Aleinu L'Sharbeach, our prayer that in some parts helps us imagine a day when every human being, however they may identify, is recognized and honored as a child of God. Aleinu L'Sharbeach at the top of page 282.
Aleinu L'Sharbeach. Latet gedula leoter breshit, shehu noter shamayim vayosed haaretz, v'moshe yekarov hashamayim imal, u'shchinatu zo begovhei meromim, hu Eloheinu enod, va'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא 287 ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Speaking of mothers, my mother-in-law of blessed memory, whose first language was Italian, used to speak about how that moment before we are born and that moment after we die, in Italian it's translated as we are swinging on the moon. And I love that image of that we're out there, and it always reminds me of this beautiful passage from Yehuda Amichai. Patuach sagor patuach, open, closed, open. Before we are born, everything is open in the universe without us. For as long as we live, everything is closed within us. And when we die, everything is open again. Patuach sagor patuach, open, closed, open. That's all we are. And so we also always take a moment to open ourselves to memory, to the loss of loved ones whose love stays with us still. And in this period of Shiva, in this last week, we remember these loved ones. Marilyn Cousins Schaefer, the mother of David Cousins, mother-in-law of Lois Swaffer, grandmother of Rose. And we also remember my dear friend from childhood, Deanne Jason Dunn. In the period of Shilashim, we are remembering these loved ones: Bob Stewart, husband of Harriet Winkleman; Sidney Ellis, cousin of Zachary Hoffman; and Jesus Ibrahim Perez Cedeno, the brother of Urania Friedman. We also remember these loved ones whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of their death, falls at this time: Ruth Aronin, Shirley Baker, Renee Better, Benjamin Bergson, Philip Blacklow, Isabel Braveman, Joan Brement, Phyllis Bricker, Wendy Clark, Rose Cohn, Sybil Cornell, J.D. Devon, Pauline Duber, Maria Ellenbogen, Helen Epstein, Earl Erdrich, Myron Freed, Kitra Garrett, Marvin Guan, Jed Howard, Theodore Jacobs, Sylvia Kelman, Emily Cohn, Raven Lidman, Elsie Polio, William Ratner, Paula Rose, Grant Rossov, Harold Schwartz, Fanny Sedlick, Howard Shenson, Yetta Smolensky, Harry Warnick, and Alex Zadek. We also recall with all of them those who have died from COVID or from gun violence in the last week. Our hearts are so heavy with all of the deaths from gun violence in this last year. And we also want to give you an opportunity to name out loud anyone that you'd like to include in this time of memory. Thank you. If you've lost a loved one in the last week or month or year, we invite you to please rise and remain standing. And if you're here remembering a loved one whose yahrzeit falls at this time, please rise. And then as one community, let's rise with the mourners among us to keep the legacy and the love of their loved ones alive. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 294. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, Bialma dibra chirute v'yamlik malchute, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chaye dekol Beit Yisrael, b'agala u'bizman karib v'yimru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam almei almaya, Yit barak v'yishtabak v'yit pa'ar v'yit ramam v'yit naseh, v'yit hadar v'yit haleh v'yit halal, shemei dekudusha b'rechu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tus berchata v'nechemata, damiran b'alma v'yimru, Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'yimru, Amen. Zikronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. Please be seated. We add to our prayers for Israel, for Yoshvei Tevel, for all who inhabit this earth. And one of the things that we're learning as we move forward and unlearn and name and heal is the fact that we are on land that we should assert a sense of gratitude for being on this land. And so we are grateful that this Shabbat gathering is happening on coastal Salish land, specifically of the Duwamish tribe. And in addition to our gratitude, which I think is such a foundational emotion for Shabbat, we as a community commit ourselves to continuing to unlearn and learn more, and continuing to actively support our neighbors who are Indigenous. And so we continue to donate to the United Indians of All Tribes Foundation, and we as a clergy team are looking to bring some learning to our community. In addition to that, the gratitude allows us also to feel a deeper sense of experiencing joy. And so, one of the reasons we celebrate when there is a new married couple in our midst is because joy that you experience gets spread and expands. And so we thank you for giving us a simcha at the beginning of our service. And we invite you now to share any kind of joy, or the word in Hebrew is simcha, because we believe whatever you may be experiencing, maybe it's a big life cycle moment, milestone, birthday, job change. Maybe it's a small accomplishment that you're just really jazzed you got to. Whatever it is, if you share it with all of us, we can experience that joy too. So anyone have anything? Yes, Ronnie. And then we'll get to you, Julie.
So I have my annual meeting of my Healthcare for All group on Saturday, and this whole week finally came together. People participating,
Oh.
showing up. It's been really powerful.
So wonderful. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear, both here and at home. But Ronnie has been working for how many years, would you say, on creating the opportunities for healthcare for all in Washington State? 50 years, so only a half a century, huh? You know, you are such a fare thee well friend to justice causes, Ronnie. So Ronnie was saying that that he worked very hard this week, and there was a gathering that happened, and it felt great to have it be accomplished. And you know, one of the things that I feel like I'm waking up to, maybe this is a part of the motivation for my teaching tonight. Change is slow and steady, my friend, and so thank you for all the work that you've been doing over these 50 years. Julie, you also had a simcha.
Whoa. Oh my
So I'm not sure everyone at home heard, but Julie graduated. I love that. Like, you know, a commencement ceremony happens from physical therapy. 9 months. It's not lost on me. That's how long it takes to gestate a human life. 9 months after spine surgery, and mazel tov to you. And we're so grateful that you are on the road to full health and wholeness. Wonderful. Any other joys to share? Well, there's a tooth that was lost, which is awesome. Yeah.
I'm halfway done with my final project for the final week this week at UW.
Oh, this is your final week of all your just this. Okay, we're in
final
finals,
of
and the
this
finish line is ahead of you, and that's a beautiful thing, and we feel your joy for that. Wonderful.
And Rabbi Ruth, I saw Kim's hand also.
Who?
Kim Stern.
Oh, Kim, I can't even see. Thank
Yeah.
you. I think it's not exactly the first year, because I believe it's happened before, but it may be the first year post-COVID.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Yeah,
some
but
celebration.
whatever it is,
Some type of new
what I
Hanukkah
do know though, speaking about foremothers who come before us, is that last night was the first state dinner in the Biden administration because of COVID, and a colleague of ours, a friend of mine, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, and her wife, who is Weingarten, I'm forgetting her first name, but who is a major Rabbi Kleinbaum is at Congregation Beth Simchat Torah, one of the first queer synagogues in the country. Her wife is a major labor organizer in education, and they were among the guests at the dinner in the Biden administration last night. So there's lots of Jewish presence in the White House. Let's go with that.
Well, maybe it was the first time in which there was a member of the leadership team that was actually Jewish to get to celebrate in the White House with the Hanukkah.
Is that what it was?
I don't know, but I'm just saying. I mean, first time since COVID or vice first, whatever it's called.
At any rate, I think at this time when I know so many of you and so many folks have spoken with us about nervousness, how wonderful to celebrate the role of Jews in America, at the heart of American society.
Amen.
And with that, let's bless Shabbat.
Let's bless Shabbat. So I'm glad to do the grape juice. Somebody think about challah. Somebody start thinking about whether you want a challah while we do this. But we'll start with grape juice. You can join with me in the blessing. It's found, I believe, on page 5 of our prayer books, virtually, or the ones in front of you. Join with me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך, ואהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני Mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim.
Is there anyone who would love to go home with this beautiful challah? Oh, come on up, come on up. And why don't we bring the whole family up, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so we'll invite you guys. Oh, I think it's perfect. And so while so terrific. While we are all here together, we'll invite you, if you choose to, you could put your arm around someone, you could touch elbow to elbow. We'll share the blessings as we do. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. And you guys can take a nice big...
Yeah.
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 And then,
oh,
Dad,
okay.
you want to take the whole thing
Not
home?
shy
and,
about it. No.
well, I'll give you that.
Oh my. They eat challah the way I
here,
like
I'll
to
give
eat
you
challah.
that, and I'll take this.
Oh.
And I got a bag for you, I think.
Oh, yes. And so as we get all the challah bits and pieces together, we think about the snow that we've had this week. We think about the hope that we definitely need and seek out during this time of year, as well as amidst all the things that we've been talking about that have been going on in the world. And so we end our service tonight with words of Esa Einai, words that help to remind us that we can look up to the light, to the hope, to the mountains, whatever it is that you can look up to. There's hope out there. The future is ahead of us, and we just got to keep going step by step. Page 70 or 339. Esa Einai El Harim Esa Einai El Harim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. Where will my help come from? Where will my help come from? My help will come from God, maker of heaven and earth. My help will come from God, maker of heaven and earth. Where will my help come from? Where will my help come from? Esa Einai, Esa Einai, El Harim, Esa Einai, El Harim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri.
this Shabbat Vayetze, may you go out and feel the blessings all around you. Shabbat Shalom. Please, thank you to everyone, and please bring your prayer books.